Hey y'all, how you doing? My name is Elisa Brock. I'm the owner of the Drama Mama Bookshop. This is my product, and today I'm going to show you how I use these lovely laser cutters. You ready? All right. So when you first walk into the laser cutting lab, you have to grab your key. So you're going to reserve one of the 4 machines that we have, and when you do, you have to come and grab the key with the name of your machine on it, right? I got spruce, so I have to use this key. Before you start to use any machine, we have to turn on the laser exhaust. You see where the big sign is? It says laser exhaust. We turn these on because it's gonna filter out all the machines, and it's an extra exhaust to the already built-in exhaust on each machine, okay? Then I'm gonna open up my laser door and turn on my machine by turning the key and twisting the emergency latch up. You can see the light kind of sparks on, and your laser head moves, right? So it's gonna move all the way to the right, but if you give it a second, wait for it, it's gonna move to the last place of origin that the last person who was using the machine had it. So be careful before you put any materials in too fast. You wanna make sure it moves to the last origin point. If you come check this out, it's really important that this machine, we call this the chiller, is on. If it's not on, your machine won't cut at all, right? So if you start running the machine and you realize that it's moving but it's not quite doing anything, it's a large chance that your chiller is not on. So as long as that's on, you're good. I like to place my material in just to sit it in and out the way. And then you want to upload your file. My file is already on there, but I'm gonna import it. All right, so the way you want to import your file is, you see this green arrow pointing down? That's the shortcut to bringing in a file. My file is on the desktop, and it's called OW Squirrel. You can see the squirrel kind of appears. So when you're bringing in files, you always want to remember to make sure your file is a DXF, AI, or SVG file. Anything else, this machine will not accept. So make sure it's a DXF or Illustrator file or SVG, okay? Now that my file is already in, we're gonna talk a little bit about color coding. Now the way that we give this machine commands is through color coding, which means if we want something to be cut out, we have to make it one specific color. If we want something engraved with a certain depth, we want to make it one specific color. If we want it scored, we have to do one specific color and adjust the settings to suit our needs, right? So let me show you how we do that. I'm going to work with 3 colors. I like to work with green, blue, and black. Black is going to be my cut color. It's going to be the things that I want cut all the way out and all the way through, right? So here I am with my squirrel. I'm going to leave, of course, the parts in which I want to kind of pop out. I'm going to leave it black. But his streak that's on his back, if you notice this one, I want it engraved. So I'm going to make it blue. So as you can see, I selected the shape that I wanted scanned, and then I selected the color right beneath it as blue and turned it blue. But that's not the only thing I want scanned. How about his eye? I'll make his eyeball blue. I'll make the OpenWorks logo blue. What else? And that's all my items. It's all my items I'd like to have scanned. Now, if I want to score an object, I'm gonna leave it on the cut settings, but I'm gonna adjust my settings so it's just light enough, right? So I'm gonna make this circle just for kicks so you can see the difference. I'm gonna make it green. So here I am, if you see to the right of my screen, I have black, I have blue, and I have green. So today we're gonna be using 1/8 birchwood, but there are tons of other materials that you can use using these laser cutters. Up on the wall just above cedar You can see we have a list of banned materials and okay materials, things you can cut and etch on and things you can only etch on. If you're ever unsure about a product or a material, feel free to ask a technician that's on staff or Google it, right? It's just a few clicks away on the internet. You can check out and see if it's laser safe. All right, come on, let's come back here. So anytime you're adjusting a setting, there are 6 areas you need to be most concerned about when using these machines here, because they are shared machines. So the 6 areas is you want to make sure you have the correct layer, right? Then you want to make sure its output says yes. Its output is telling the machine, I want you to acknowledge and cut this material, right? We'll talk later about if we wanted to say no, okay? Then you have speed. Now for 1/8 birch wood, my speed is usually 20 because I'm cutting through. Now here's the trick that's gonna be very useful when you're cutting any material, right? Anytime you wanna cut through a material, you want your speed to be low and your power to be high. You want it to move slow enough over the surface of of the material to make sure that it's there long enough to cut through, and you wanna make sure it has enough power to really cut through. So ours is gonna be 20 for this 1/8 birch wood. If blowing, you want if blowing to say yes. You always, almost always want it to say yes. If not, let's just say a fire could happen. Won't tell you how to know, but it will. All right, so you want it to say yes. Processing mode, right? This is where we tell it what to do. The 2 modes that you wanna be focused on is cut and scan, right? If you're gonna cut through something, if you wanna cut all the way through it, of course you're gonna select cut. If you wanna engrave, and that's that deep, dark lettering, right? You wanna pick scan. If you wanna score, you're also gonna select cut, but you're gonna adjust your settings to suit your needs, right? So we're gonna select cut because our black layer, right, is a cut setting. And now we want our power at 100. When you're using any of these machines, right, you always want your cut, you don't want your cut power to be anything more than 100. Got it? Your cut, scan, anything. We don't go over 100 in power. Cool. So once we've done that, we can hit OK. Then we have our next one, right? Our next layer is blue. Next layer is blue, and blue is our scanning color, right? So because it's our scanning color, we want to make sure our output says yes. You see it says no right now, but we want it to say yes. We want to keep our speed at 300, right? Now here's the trick when scanning. Anytime you're scanning a material, you want your speed to be fast, right? But you want your power to be low for the same exact but opposite reason as the reason why we make our cut settings the way that we do, right? So our speed settings are 300. If blowing, should say yes, right? Because we don't want to fire. And we should select scan for our processing mode. Today, for our minimum and maximum power, we're gonna make our power 30. Now here's another thing. What you put in for minimum power, you put in maximum power for everything, right? Minimum, maximum, all the same, okay? Okay, so check our settings, make sure we're all good. Looks like we are, and we hit okay. Now the last one is the scoring, right? This is the setting that I use for scoring when I don't want any bleed through on the back of my material. I find it successful with working with birchwood and chipboard, which I use a lot when I'm making my books. So let's see. We want is output to say yes, because we are actually getting it to do something. And we want our speed to be fast, right? And we want our power to be slow. So my favorite settings for this in particular is 150. So green is our score setting, right? So the first thing we want to make sure is that we selected the right layer like before. Then we want our output to say yes, of course. We want our speed this time, although we're going to use the processing mode cut, we want our speed to be fast and our power to be low as if we were scanning. But instead, we're just going to graze the top layer of our birchwood, our material, very lightly, okay? So this is 150, that's the setting I like most. Then you have if blowing, yes, right, always. And then we have our processing mode, which is gonna be cut. With the Boss Laser software, there's no particular setting for scan. So what we do is we convince the machine with our settings to just score on top. For our power, right, we want our power to be 15 minimum and 15 maximum. Then we're gonna hit OK. Now, one more setting I think I want to show you, right? Just so you know. I'm going to select the outside of this squirrel kit, and I'm going to make it red. And I'm going to make red our no cut settings, right? Now, when we decide to make a setting that is no cut, we're going to tell the machine, hey, I want you to know that it's there, but I don't want you to really do anything about it, right? So what we do is we select no output, right? So none of your settings really matter if you select no output, right? So I just want you to know if you want to like outline the material you're using and you don't actually want to use the square or box that it's in, you can do that as an option. Here's another thing. So configure. So the machine, the Boss Laser cutters normally start from its right corner, right? Top right corner. That's its natural origin. And because its natural origin, it's the origin I choose to make my origin when I'm working in my files. Now I'm gonna show you how to change the origin based on your needs. So come check this out. So config, you go to config, you go to system settings, and all the way to your right, you're gonna select the right top corner. But if you wanted the center, you do that. If you wanted the left bottom, you do that. So we're gonna leave ours at the right top. And you can notice that it is selected because this little green marker will kind of show up right at the end. I'm gonna show you a few other things too that you can use this software for. It's not the best design software. It's mostly here so that we can speak to our machine, right? If you want to design, you want to use another outlet, a more savvy design software. Now let's say you want to rotate this one, right? 90 degrees. Then you select the entire area, you click on this little rotating box, and then you'll select 90. And then it will flip it for you. And that's something that folks always wonder, how do I flip? So let's say you want to flip it the other way, right? Like what if you want what if you want the legs to kind of appear on this side and then you want the squirrel to appear on that side? You want to do something like this. So check this out. You see these little triangles to the left. You flip it and it would reverse the image and offer you a reverse duplicate of that image. Now I'm gonna flip it back. Now you can do the same up and down with this other image. So we got bow, right? All right. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. All right, so now we want to view our image, right, and see what's gonna scan and what's actually gonna cut. So when you see this little TV screen right up, monitor, it's a monitor. You see this little monitor right up top? So you're gonna click on it, and this is gonna give you an idea of what we have and what's gonna scan and what's gonna cut. So now that all of our settings are adjusted and in place, we're ready to send all our documents over to the Boss Laser itself. And how we do that is directly on the right side of the screen. I like to say everything we bring in and design happens here, but we talk to the machine itself over here, right? So right down at the bottom, you're gonna see a button that says download. And we always wanna download. You can run into some issues if you just try to press start, right? And that's kind of booting up the machine. You don't wanna do that. You really wanna download each and every time you have a file, just bring it in. It's a much better way to get things done. All right, so we hit download, and you wanna name your file something short and sweet, right? So we're gonna do OWS, so let's open work squirrel. gonna hit OK. So once we've downloaded our file, we're gonna find it right in the machine. We do that by going to File, and then OWS, right? You see our file name, we hit Enter, and then you see the image of our squirrel pops up. So we're gonna hit. So now that our file is safely tucked away inside the machine, we can now start to autofocus our lens from the material. The way we do that is by using these arrows to go left and right, right? Up and down, up and down. And then we want to bring our laser head to the center of the material, right? To its lowest point. We're gonna hit ZU, right? And we're gonna stay at Z move and go left to right. As you see, when we go left, the bed goes down, right? When we go right, the bed goes up. As long as it is over, blue light is on, Z move, right? Then we want to find one of these. There's several of them all over the shop. This is our focus tool. We only want to manually focus these machines. No autofocus, just manually, okay? All right. You hang that lightly on the edge of the machine, and then we're gonna hit escape. Then we're gonna stay on the ZU. Then we're gonna stay on the ZU and move our bed up. Now what we wanted to do is we want the tip of our focus beam to hit the material, right? You see how it's perfectly right aligned? So either it's gonna fall off or it's just gonna sit nicely on top, right? Once we have a good distance, we're gonna take it and leave it as it is. We wanna hit escape, right? And then once we hit escape, our screen is clear. We can go up and down and left and right again. The next thing we wanna do is situate our origin, right? So our origin on the computer screen, right, under our software is to the top right, right? So then our origin on our material should be to our top right. Now I'm using the arrows to move the laser around, but you also could just do this. And you want it at the very tip, right? Then you want to hit origin. It's not going to do anything special. It's just going to be a really light beep. But if you don't do that, the origin isn't selected, okay? The second thing you want to do is you want to go back and find your file that you took a look at. You're going to hit enter. And then once your file pops up, you want to hit frame. Frame is going to frame everywhere that the laser is going to actually cut, right? So let's do it again. Make sure it's right inside the material, and I think that's an excellent spot. Once the frame is all set, I'm aware that my chiller is on, my exhaust is on, and all my settings are up to par. Always double check. Then you're gonna close your laser door. All right? Once you close your laser door, you've already framed it, you're gonna hit start. Right here at the bottom. So then the laser starts to move and cut. You always want to keep an eye on it in the first few minutes, mostly because if a fire is going to start, this is when it's going to start, okay? Right at the beginning. So you want to be near it to make sure everything's getting cut just as it should. Now, what do we do in case of a fire? So there are several steps you can take when a fire starts, right? One of them is by pausing your machine. Just where you put start is also where pause is. If you see a flame more than the flame that is normal or typical, you know, that light spark at the beginning of a cut, then you want to definitely pause it and open your laser door, right? If you're in a hurry and it's a big flame, or not too big, right? You can take open your laser door swiftly, and what happens is that the machine will cut off and air will kind of filter out, all right? The second thing you can do is you can take your material and stomp it on the floor, or you can go to our laser storage grab some water and spray it if necessary, right? But we're doing a pretty successful cut. We've done everything we're supposed to do, so we don't have to worry about that. Should I come over here so we can actually cut it? All right, now that it's all done, open up and remove our piece. As you can see, we have a squirrel and it's already in place. So it cut all the way through. You see we have a little burn marks in the back, and that's all good. We can kind of file it down and sand it, right? So these have little breaks in between each cut, which allows the piece to stay in place. So when they designed the squirrel, they designed it to stay in place. But if you notice, the areas that we decided to engrave all showed up as engraved. And then take a look at our score. You see the circle at the top? Really light edge over the top. And then the ones that we had cut through, some fell out, some stayed in place. This one we can just pop out. All right. So we've successfully made a laser cut squirrel, and here's just a few reminders, things to keep in mind when operating the laser cutters, okay? One of the things you want to remember is to make sure that our laser exhaust is always on when operating any of the machines. It ensures that there's proper ventilation from the machines out into the open air, right? The second thing you want to keep in mind is to make sure your chiller is on, okay? The chiller is, if you remember, the box here. It keeps the machine cool and at a temperature that allows it to cut safely. If it's not on, your machine will not cut, right? Another thing we want to keep in mind is we want to keep the door closed for just about a minute, up to 3 minutes if you're using acrylic, between each cut. This allows our laser exhaust to actually work, right? So we're gonna keep it closed for about a minute to 3 minutes, and then we're gonna open up our laser door, all right? Another thing to keep in mind is cleanup. These are all shared machines, right? And because they're all shared machines, we wanna make sure it's safe for the next person. We have to use our HVAC, which is right over there, and you can find at various corners of the room. And vacuum the inside of our machines at all times. If we don't, what happens is small materials can get stuck in between the bed gate, right? And what will happen is little fires can break out. So we really want to make sure we're keeping ourselves and our co-workers in this space safe. If you ever have any other questions, right, you can always go to our website. Also have plenty of technicians in the space that can help. So if you have any questions, don't be afraid to ask. Thanks for making a squirrel with me today. I'll see y'all next time.